I have spent 347 cycles studying warfare across 92 different species. I hold 12 advanced degrees in military history, combat psychology, and tactical evolution. My dissertation on the fall of the Vel'Koth Empire is required reading at every respectable academy in the Galactic Council. So when I tell you that nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the day a human walked into my lecture hall and casually dismantled 4,000 years of established military theory, you need to understand the weight of that statement. My name is Professor Qix'larn of the 3rd Scholarly Caste, and I teach advanced warfare studies at the Interstellar Academy on Proxima Station. The auditorium seats 800 students from 60 different worlds. It's impressive, really. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the swirling nebula beyond, holographic displays that can recreate any battle in history down to the molecular level, and me, standing at the podium with my reputation and my carefully organized notes. That morning, I was lecturing on the Crimson Paladins of Vorthax. You know the ones. 7 feet tall, crystallized bone armor that grows from their very skeleton, capable of withstanding direct plasma fire. They conquered 17 star systems in less than a decade. Utterly terrifying. Completely unstoppable. The stuff of nightmares across half the galaxy had just pulled up a holographic recreation of a Crimson Paladin in full battle stance. The thing was magnificent and horrifying. Crimson armor glinting, 4 arms each holding a different weapon, eyes that literally glowed with predatory intent. Note the physiological advantages, I said, gesturing with my teaching stylus. Redundant organ systems, enhanced musculature, accelerated healing factors. The Vorthax spent millennia engineering their warrior caste into the perfect killing machines. They are, without question, among the most formidable combatants ever documented. That's when I heard it. A snort. An actual, audible snort of what I could only describe as amusement. I paused mid-sentence. 800 students sat in complete silence, except for one figure slouched in the back row. The human. They'd arrived 3 weeks ago, part of some new exchange program after humanity had finally been granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. I'd been warned that humans were, and I quote, unusual, but the administration assured me they were harmless enough. The human, a female named Jessica Torres, was leaning back in her seat with her feet propped up on the desk in front of her. Completely inappropriate posture for an academic setting, but I'd learned to pick my battles. Is something amusing, Cadet Torres? I asked, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice. She looked up, seeming genuinely surprised that I'd noticed her reaction. Oh, sorry, Professor Q. It's just, you called them war gods? The way she said it. Like she was trying not to laugh. Like the concept itself was ridiculous. I felt my neck frills begin to flush purple, which is never a good sign. The Crimson Paladins are widely recognized as one of the galaxy's most elite warrior classes. Perhaps you'd care to share what you find so humorous about that? Torres sat up, shrugging in that peculiar way humans do. No disrespect, Prof, but that guy looks like my Uncle Bob after he's had a few beers and someone said something stupid about his truck. The auditorium erupted in confused murmurs. I heard someone from the collection delegation whisper, "What is a truck?" Another student, a Yarvelian, made a note on their datapad, probably trying to look up this Uncle Bob person in the human military archives, clicked my mandibles together, a gesture of barely contained frustration. Your Uncle Bob is a Crimson Paladin? What? No. Torres actually laughed. Uncle Bob's a construction worker from Nevada. I'm saying they've got the same energy. Big, scary looking, talks a tough game. But I've seen Uncle Bob cry at a dog food commercial, so you know, perspective. I stared at her. The entire class stared at her. The holographic Crimson Paladin seemed to stare at her, frozen in its menacing battle stance. You are comparing an engineered super soldier, capable of tearing through reinforced battle armor with their bare hands, to your, I paused, consulting my datapad, construction worker relative? I mean, Uncle Bob did demo an entire apartment building by himself in 4 days, so, yeah, kind of? A Threxian student raised 3 of his appendages. Professor, is this human experiencing some form of cognitive malfunction? Should we contact medical services? Torres turned to face the Threxian. Dude, I'm fine. I'm just saying, you all seem really impressed by this guy, and he's just, like, a big dude with extra arms and some fancy armor. Just a big dude, I repeated slowly. With extra arms. And armor grown from his own skeleton. That can withstand temperatures exceeding 4,000 degrees. Okay, but can he do a backflip? Torres asked, completely serious. The question was so unexpected that I actually had to reboot my translator implant. What? Why would that be relevant? Because Terry from my old platoon could do a backflip in full combat gear while juggling live grenades, and we never called him a war god. We called him an idiot with good reflexes. Another student, a Pelvorian named Qix'larn who took everything extremely seriously, spoke up. Cadet Torres, you are being disrespectful to the professor's expertise. The Crimson Paladins destroyed the Helverin defense fleet. 30,000 trained soldiers, gone in 6 hours. Torres nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, that's pretty bad. What kind of weapons did the Helverin fleet have? I pulled up the data, slightly mollified that she was at least engaging with the material. Standard plasma rifles, ion cannons, tactical nuclear devices, the usual military-grade equipment. Right. And the Paladins just, walked through all that? Essentially, yes. Their armor is incredibly resilient, and their tactical coordination is unmatched. Torres made a humming sound. So nobody tried, like, a pit trap? The auditorium went silent again. This was becoming a pattern. A what? I asked. A pit trap. You know, dig a big hole, cover it with something, they fall in. Classic strategy. She said this like she was explaining basic arithmetic to a child. Qix'larn's eye stalks quivered with indignation. The Helverin were advanced civilization with orbital bombardment capabilities. They did not use pit traps. Well, maybe they should have, Torres muttered, pulling out a human snack bar from her pack and taking a bite, decided to regain control of my lecture. Cadet Torres, I appreciate your perspective, but I assure you, the Crimson Paladins are not to be underestimated. They have been studied extensively. Their combat prowess is well documented. Sure. Hey, quick question, how do they handle cold? I blinked. Cold? Yeah, like, freezing temperatures. Their armor's all biological, right? What happens if you drop the temperature to, I don't know, minus 200 degrees? I consulted my notes. The data suggests that extreme cold does slow their metabolic processes somewhat, but they have adapted to a wide range of environmental conditions. But they slow down, Torres pressed. Yes, marginally. So they're vulnerable. That is an oversimplification of a complex biological system, I began, but Torres was already turning to address the class. Look, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm sure these Crimson Paladin guys are tough. But you're all acting like they're invincible, and nothing's invincible. Everything's got a weakness. You just gotta find it and exploit it. That's basic tactical thinking. A Norvian student in the third row spoke up, her voice hesitant. But the humans are newcomers to the galactic stage. You have not faced opponents like the Crimson Paladins. Your species has only fought amongst yourselves. Torres grinned, and there was something unsettling about that expression. Something that made my survival instincts suddenly take notice. Yeah, exactly. We've only fought ourselves. Do you have any idea how good you have to be to survive that? The question hung in the air like an unexploded munition. I decided to move on. Let us continue. Next, I want to discuss the siege of Altair 7, where a single Crimson Paladin held off an entire battalion for 72 hours. I pulled up the footage, expecting the usual reactions. Gasps, horrified silence, perhaps a few students taking detailed notes on defensive positions and combat efficiency. Instead, I heard Torres say, "Oh, that's the bridge bottleneck tactic." Smart. I paused the hologram. You recognize this strategy? Yeah, we've been using that since, like, ancient Greece. Maybe earlier. Force your enemy into a narrow space where numbers don't matter, hold the line. King Leonidas at Thermopylae, the Battle of Stamford Bridge, heck, my high school football team used the same principle. Your school children study military tactics? Qix'larn asked, sounding genuinely disturbed. What? No, it's just football. You know, sports? Torres seemed confused by the question. Though I guess Coach Davidson did describe our defense strategy as total warfare, but I'm pretty sure he was being metaphorical. I rubbed my sensory ridge, feeling a headache forming. Cadet Torres, the point of this lesson is to understand the exceptional nature of elite warrior classes across the galaxy. These are not common soldiers. They are the pinnacle of martial achievement. Right, I get that. Torres finished her snack bar and crumpled the wrapper. But here's the thing, Professor, you keep saying these guys are special because they're big, tough, and trained for war. But where I come from, that's basically every third dude at the VFW hall on Friday night. The what hall? Veterans of Foreign Wars. It's where old soldiers hang out, play cards, tell stories, complain about their knees. She paused. Actually, now that I think about it, my Uncle Bob goes there too. He's not even a veteran, he just likes the cheap beer. I was beginning to suspect that this Uncle Bob person was either completely fictional or the single most influential figure in human society. The lecture eventually ended, though I cannot say I maintained my usual level of academic composure. Torres left the auditorium still munching on another one of those human snack bars, seemingly unaware that she had just questioned for millennia of established military doctrine. The other students filed out in confused clusters, whispering among themselves about pit traps and Uncle Bob and whether humans were brilliantly tactical or completely insane. Suspected it might be both. 3 days later, the academy director summoned me to her office. Director Vashnella was a Kaltorian, which meant she had 6 eyes and could literally see through most forms of deception. She also had a reputation for being aggressively pragmatic, which I usually appreciated. That day, however, I was less enthusiastic about her directness. Qix'larn, I have received 17 formal complaints about your human student, she said without preamble, her primary eyes focused on me while her secondary eyes scanned through a datapad, settled into the visitor chair, which was slightly too small for my frame. Director, I assure you, I have been attempting to integrate Cadet Torres into the curriculum, but her perspective on military history is, shall we say, unconventional. Unconventional. Vashnella set down the datapad, and all 6 eyes fixed on me. It was deeply unnerving. She told Professor Qix'larn that the legendary ghost soldiers of Planova were, and I quote, just doing basic guerrilla tactics that humans figured out in the Stone Age. That does sound like something she would say. She also informed the entire strategic combat class that the siege of Tarthos could have been resolved with what she called a negotiation and some pizza, whatever that is. I clicked my mandibles. To be fair, Director, the siege of Tarthos did last 40 years and resulted in the extinction of 2 species. Perhaps she has a point about alternative solutions. Vashnella's eyes narrowed. You are defending her? I am saying that her comments, while crude and often delivered with inappropriate levity, are not entirely without merit. The human perspective is different. Different is acceptable. Disruptive is not. The director stood, walking to the massive window overlooking the station's central hub. However, I did not call you here to reprimand you. I called you here because we have a situation, and I believe your human student might be uniquely qualified to assist. That got my attention. What kind of situation? Are you familiar with the Brechian Honor Guard? I felt my frills flatten against my neck. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Brechian Honor Guard. They were elite soldiers from a warrior culture so intense that their children started combat training before they could walk. They were 7 feet of pure muscle and aggression, with battle instincts honed over generations of selective breeding. They made the Crimson Paladins look friendly. Yes, I am familiar with them. Please tell me they have not declared war on someone. Worse. They have declared war on us. I stood so quickly that I knocked over the chair. What? Why? Apparently, one of their diplomats attended your lecture 3 days ago. He heard Cadet Torres compare their most legendary warrior, someone they literally worship as the god of blades, to her Uncle Bob. I felt my internal organs rearrange themselves in panic. Oh no. Oh yes. The Brechians have issued a formal challenge. They are sending their current champion, a soldier named Drak'thor the Unbreakable, to, and I quote, teach the insolent human the meaning of true combat prowess. They want to fight Torres? A single unarmed student? Not exactly. They want her to face Drak'thor in the arena of proving. It is a Brechian tradition. Single combat, no weapons beyond what you can carry, first to yield or die. I began pacing, which is difficult to do gracefully with 4 legs. This is insane. Torres is a student, not a gladiator. Surely the Brechian delegation will accept an apology. The apology was offered. It was rejected. Violently. Vashnella turned to face me. Qix'larn, the Brechians are furious. If we do not accept this challenge, they will consider it a grave insult and withdraw from the Galactic Council. 17 trade agreements will collapse. Border disputes will reignite. We are looking at potential sector-wide instability. So we sacrifice a human student to maintain diplomatic relations? I would never suggest such a thing. But Torres does have a choice. We have explained the situation to her. I felt dread settle in my chest. And what did she say? Vashnella's expression was difficult to read. She said, and these are her exact words, sure, sounds fun, and then asked if she could bring snacks to the arena. She said it sounds fun. Yes. To fight a Brechian Honor Guard champion. Yes. I sat back down, no longer caring about the chair. Director, with all respect, I believe Cadet Torres may be suffering from a severe disconnect with reality. That is certainly one interpretation. The other is that she genuinely does not understand the danger she is in. Or, I said slowly, a terrible thought forming, she understands perfectly well and simply does not care. We both sat in silence for a moment, considering the implications. The arena of proving was located in the lower decks of Proxima Station, built specifically for the Brekian delegation's cultural needs. It was a circular chamber, about 60 meters across, with walls made of reinforced titanium alloy. The floor was covered in sand, traditional for Brekian combat. Seating surrounded the arena in ascending tiers, and every seat was filled. Word had spread fast. Students, faculty, diplomats, and random station personnel had all come to watch the human either prove herself or get demolished. The betting pools were heavily weighted toward the latter. Sat in the faculty section with Vashella and several other professors. Below, in the arena, stood Drak'thor the Unbreakable. He was magnificent. 8 feet tall, covered in ceremonial armor that gleamed under the lights. His skin was a deep purple, marked with scars from 1,000 battles. He held a plasma spear in one hand and an energy shield in the other. His eyes glowed with barely contained fury. Across from him, standing in the sand looking completely relaxed, was Jessica Torres. She wore her standard academy jumpsuit. No armor. No weapons. She had tied her hair back in a simple ponytail and was doing stretches like she was preparing for a casual jog. The Brekian announcer's voice boomed through the arena. Combat will commence when both warriors signal readiness. The fight continues until one yields or is incapacitated. Death, while not required, is acceptable. Drak'thor raised his spear and roared, a sound that literally made the walls vibrate. It was a challenge, a promise of violence, a declaration of martial supremacy. Torres looked up, gave a little wave, and said, "Hey, what's up?" The crowd went silent. Drak'thor's roar cut off abruptly. He stared at Torres like she had just spoken in a dead language. "You mock me, human?" His voice was deep, resonant, and absolutely dripping with menace. "What?" "No, I was just saying hi." Torres finished her stretches and rolled her shoulders. "You ready?" "Because I skipped lunch for this and I really want to grab a sandwich after." A Norvian student sitting near me whispered, "She is going to die horribly." I was beginning to think the same thing. The announcer spoke again. "Combatants, signal readiness." Drak'thor struck his shield with his spear, producing a sharp metallic clang that echoed through the arena. Torres gave a thumbs up, which apparently translated across species because the announcer seemed to accept it. "Begin." What happened next will be studied in military academies for generations, though I suspect no one will ever fully understand it. Drak'thor charged. 8 feet of armored warrior moving with shocking speed, spear aimed directly at Torres's center mass. It was a killing blow, meant to end the fight in seconds. Torres stepped to the side, not dove, not rolled, just stepped. Like she was avoiding a puddle on the sidewalk, the spear missed her by inches. Drak'thor's momentum carried him forward, and Torres casually stuck her foot out. The Unbreakable, champion of the Brekian honor guard, tripped, hit the sand face first with a sound like a small explosion. The arena erupted in shocked gasps. Someone behind me said something that my translator refused to process, probably profanity. Drak'thor surged back to his feet, sand coating his armor. His eyes blazed with rage. "You dare? Dude, you charged at me with a spear. What did you think was going to happen?" Torres actually sounded confused. Drak'thor attacked again, this time with more caution. He thrust, slashed, tried to use his shield to bash Torres into submission. It was textbook perfect combat technique, the kind of fighting that had won 1,000 battles. Torres made it look easy. She ducked under strikes, sidestepped thrusts, even at one point used Drak'thor's own shield as a springboard to flip over his head. She was not fighting back, just avoiding, moving with an economy of motion that seemed almost lazy. "Stop running, coward!" Drak'thor bellowed. "I'm not running, I'm standing right here." Torres pointed at her feet. "You're just really bad at hitting things." Professor Qix'larn, sitting 2 seats over, leaned toward me. "Qix'larn, is she toying with him?" I could not answer. I was too busy recalibrating everything I thought I knew about human capabilities. Drak'thor was breathing hard now, his attacks becoming more desperate. Torres still looked fresh, barely winded. "Okay, real talk," Torres said, dodging another spear thrust. "How long are we doing this?" "Because I actually do have a test to study for." Drak'thor roared and threw his spear. It was a desperate move, sacrificing his primary weapon for one chance at a hit. Torres caught it, just reached up and caught the spear mid-flight like she was catching a ball. The entire arena went dead silent. Torres looked at the spear in her hand, then at Drak'thor, then back at the spear. "Huh. Nice balance on this thing. You make it yourself?" Drak'thor stood frozen, shield raised, clearly trying to process what had just happened. Torres walked toward him, still holding the spear. "Look man, no offense, but I think we both know how this ends. You are tired, I am not, and I am now armed while you have just got a shield. We can keep going if you want, but maybe we could just call it here and go get some food? I bet this station has a decent cafeteria." Drak'thor's voice was barely a whisper. You are not even trying." I mean, you did try to stab me, so I was definitely trying not to get stabbed. That took some effort. No. You are not trying to fight. You are playing. Torres considered this. I guess. I mean, you challenged me to a fight, and I do not really want to hurt you, so I figured I would just wait until you got tired. That is a strategy, right, Professor Q? I realized she was looking up at me in the stands. 800 faces turned in my direction. That is, yes, attrition warfare is a legitimate tactical approach, I managed to say. Torres turned back to Drak'thor. See? Legitimate tactics. So, we good here? For a long moment, Drak'thor just stared at her. Then, slowly, he lowered his shield. You could have ended this at any time. Probably, yeah. You could have killed me. Torres looked genuinely horrified. What? No way, dude. Why would I kill you? You are just doing your cultural honor thing. I get it. No hard feelings. She held out the spear, offering it back to him. Drak'thor took it with shaking hands. This is not, you were supposed to fight. I did fight. I won. That is how fighting works. Torres patted his arm, which required her to reach up significantly. Good effort though. You almost got me with that shield bash move. That was clever. The Brekian warrior, the unbreakable champion of his people, looked like his entire worldview had just collapsed. Torres turned and started walking toward the arena exit. Okay, I am seriously hungry now. Anyone know where I can get a sandwich? Oh, and Professor Q, I will have that essay on asymmetric warfare on your desk by Friday. She left the arena waving at the stunned crowd. Drak'thor stood in the sand, still holding his spear, looking lost. Director Vashnella leaned over to me. So, your assessment of the human? I watched Torres disappear through the exit, probably off to find that sandwich. Director, I believe we may have severely underestimated Earth as a whole. Because Torres defeated a Brekian champion? No. Because she defeated a Brekian champion and thought it was boring. The director's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. That is a terrifying observation. Yes. Yes, it is. Below us, Drak'thor finally moved, walking slowly toward the exit. As he passed the Brekian delegation, their ambassador stood and placed a hand on his shoulder. They spoke in low tones, but my auditory sensors caught fragments, something about requesting formal combat training from the humans. Something about needing to understand their methods. Something about Uncle Bob possibly being the greatest tactical mind in the galaxy, and should they attempt to make contact, decided not to correct them. Later that evening, I found Torres in the station cafeteria, eating a sandwich and reading a datapad. She looked up as I approached. Hey Professor Q, want to sit? I settled across from her. That was quite a display today. She shrugged. I guess. I was worried I would mess up the tripping thing, but it worked out. You plan to trip him? Well, yeah. Big guy, heavy armor, lots of momentum. If I could get him off balance, he would have trouble recovering. Basic physics. I clicked my mandibles thoughtfully. Cadet Torres, may I ask you something? Sure. This Uncle Bob you keep mentioning. Is he real? Torres laughed. Of course he is real. Lives in Carson City, drives a Ford F-150, has 3 kids and a dog named Princess. Why? No reason. I simply wanted to confirm. I paused. Is he exceptional in some way? Uncle Bob? No, he is just a regular guy. Works hard, pays his taxes, goes fishing on weekends. She took another bite of her sandwich. Why do you ask? Because you have compared him to legendary warriors multiple times, and I am beginning to suspect that what humans consider regular might be what the rest of the galaxy considers extraordinary. Torres stopped chewing. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw understanding dawn in her eyes. Oh. Oh wow. You guys really do not get it, do you? Get what? Humans are not special, Professor. We are us. We have been fighting and surviving and adapting for hundreds of thousands of years. We have fought each other, nature, diseases, ourselves again, everything. We got good at it because we had to. But we never thought we were special for it. We just thought we were normal. And now that you have joined the galactic community? Torres set down her sandwich. Now I am realizing that maybe normal for us is not normal for everyone else. And honestly, that is kind of scary. Because if Uncle Bob is exceptional by galactic standards, and he is just a construction worker from Nevada, then what does that make the actual exceptional humans? We sat in silence, both contemplating the implications. Finally, Torres spoke again. You know what the weirdest part is? What? Uncle Bob would love this conversation. He would tell this story at the VFW hall every single Friday for the next 10 years. Despite everything, I found myself making the clicking sound that is Kaltorian laughter. Perhaps we should invite him to give a guest lecture. Torres grinned. Oh man, he would absolutely do it too. Fair warning though, his PowerPoint skills are terrible. As I left the cafeteria that night, I made a note to completely revise my military history curriculum. Clearly, I had been teaching from a limited perspective somewhere in the station. Drak'thor the Unbreakable was probably questioning every life choice that led him to this moment, and on a planet called Earth, in a city called Carson City, a construction worker named Bob was probably sitting on his porch, drinking beer, completely unaware that he had just become a legendary figure in galactic military theory. The universe, I decided, had a truly bizarre sense of humor.